Hi there, welcome to my channel. A special welcome today to parents who are wondering if they should worry when their child or teen comes home talking about furries and wanting to be a furry. So, is this your situation at the moment? Has your child come home saying that they want to be a furry, that they are a furry, talking about animals and things like that? First of all, furries are a community who like animals, anthropomorphic animals, which means animals that can talk, stand up, walk like humans, talk like humans, feel like humans. So they're obviously everywhere when we're children. In all the cartoons and books that we read, there's always animals like this. So it is not unnatural that some of us who wish to maintain that magic, some of us continue that when we get a bit older. And even, I say, older when we become teens, and obviously into adulthood. I mean, who wouldn't? Sometimes the world isn't that great, so we want something a little bit magical, a little bit fun, a little bit more relaxing than having to sometimes deal with everything in our current adult life. So it's just a way of relaxing and having a nice community to refer to. It's a really friendly community generally. I obviously have heard that there are problems like anywhere. Any community will have issues between people. People are just, we're human, right? We're not going to get on with everybody. So like in any community, we are not going to get on with some people, and we will find absolute best friends as well in these communities. The main point you may be worrying about, though, about furries is that obviously there is a huge adult-themed connection that has been made to with furries. Obviously due to some exposures that furries have had publicly, online, or on TV. There have been things that have led people to believe that furries are purely an adult-themed activity. So please do not be alarmed. This is not the case. Furries and the furry world is not only adult themed. It is mainly a SFW community, safe for work community. However, it is true, like any community, that there is an adult themed side to it. Any community like cosplay, manga, anime, any of these costumes, I was going to say, any of these communities, fantasy, science fiction, any of them, they will all have an adult side to them somewhere. And furries are the same. They have an adult themed side to them. But this is not the default setting, let's say. When you go to conventions, they are not allowed to have any adult themed stuff exposed. Everything that will be NSFW, not safe for work, anything like that, will be in dedicated areas or dedicated books. Nothing will be exposed directly to the viewers. The entries for conventions are generally limited anyway for 18 plus. This is because obviously we are all staying in overnight, over several days. We are staying there for the convention. So obviously the hotel nor the convention organizers can take any responsibility for anything happening between people during that stay. This is obviously going to be because of people sharing rooms. We share rooms with our friends. We get together in several to try to bring the cost down. So obviously they cannot be responsible for who your child is sharing a room with, or who they want to, who they have picked to share a room with. This is often going to be the main thing as well, because there is a bar access. There is obviously going to be the main issue probably will also be the traveling to the conventions. Conventions are not very close to each other, so people will often have to travel a lot. Nobody can take the responsibility for any underage person crossing Europe to get to a convention, or going to the States to get to a convention, for example. I'm in Europe, so for me, I mean, going over to the States, even as an adult, I'm not overly keen. I'm too far. I've not got the energy for that. But obviously there will always be a certain amount of risk when traveling on one's own, for example. So obviously it cannot be for underage people. So if you have a child or a young teen who wants to go to these conventions, most of the time it will not be possible. Sometimes in your local town you might have meetups, they call them. So this is just a day meetup, but even that will often be, I think, limited to even 16 in the day, and I think even the evenings is limited to 18 as well, because most of the time it's often going to be in like a bar or a pub or something as well. So that will mean the presence of alcohol and the accessibility to alcohol. So obviously that will have to be for people who are of the right age anyway. So on the sort of convention front, I don't think you need to worry too much. As long as you've brought them up properly to start with. I think your main worry is going to teach your child, especially when they're younger, and as they grow up to become teens, is especially teaching them about the online exchanges you can have. And this means also for the non-furry communications, because obviously online we do not know who we are talking to sometimes, whether it be online games, online chats, online communities like the furry community. There's a lot of online messaging going on the Telegram groups and stuff. And obviously that you're going to run into some people at some point that are going to be more or less odd, more or less harmless, more or less boring, and obviously some very interesting ones, which, I mean, as I said, everyone's going to find people that they don't get on with, that they get on with, that they adore. There's going to be a whole mix. That's just people. But obviously you're going to have to be aware that any online communication, as I said, furry related or non-furry related, there's always going to be some risk. So you need to be aware of the risks and obviously teach these risks to your child. The earlier the better, and obviously help encourage them to be careful rather than just saying that they can't do it. The furry community itself is going to be mainly artistic, I'd say. A lot of people find that the furry community is a bit like a big sort of family, so that's where they'll often go to find comfort and stuff if they've got issues or worries, and just questions, and just to have a nice chat. It does become a very friendly community here. I find it's very good for people who have a lot of trouble maybe interacting with others, because the online side of it helps. But as I said, because the furry side has a comforting side to it, being fursuits and having another character for oneself, it does help to create a bit of a protection when meeting other people by impersonating this other sort of character, animal character. So I think it can be quite comforting to some, maybe people with handicaps as well, or might find it easier to relate to other people like this. So I think it can be quite a beneficial experience for a lot of young people who feel a bit lost sometimes. It's especially, I think, important afterwards for the artistic ones who can find a huge amount of resources online, YouTube for any costume making. Remember, furries, the most distinctive side of them is the costume. So it's the fursuit. So the fursuit is just the big animals. You can either have different types, the partial with the head, hand, paws. You can have a full body costume like this as well, head to toe. And I think this might be your main problem you might have with your child, let's say, is the fact that they might very well want a costume. And in this case, this is going to be complicated, because if your child is still at an age where they are growing, getting a fursuit is a rather tricky option because of this problem of outgrowing the costume. Fursuits take a lot of time to make, it's a lot of effort, and they cost a lot of money if they're bought from professional artists. You can get some from non-declared people, which, if you really need it to be that much cheaper, I guess maybe you can do that. Obviously, I cannot recommend it, since obviously I am trying to do things legally and properly. So obviously all my fellow colleague makers who who are trying to do it correctly would obviously feel a bit hurt if we recommend the non-declared people. But it's true, it would be an option to get a cheaper suit. However, on that front, you might come across young makers who will not have any guarantees or any sort of insurance of quality. Being new, they might not have as good a quality suits either. It all depends. That's going to be a very random hit and miss, but obviously there will be less protection if it is not a declared business. And I mean, the main thing is really, it's really sad if you spend all that money and time, or someone spends all that time making the costume and your child outgrows it. They might outgrow the costume, but they might also outgrow furries as well and not be interested in them in a few years if they are very young. Like, you get some people who are interested already when they're 9, 10, 11 years old. It doesn't mean that they're going to stay like that forever, that they're going to always love furries. I mean, at any age you might go off it as well. It's always going to be a risk of there being a phase. But at that age, between the change in size and the mind evolution, at that point, children are becoming teens. They will obviously think about other things, and getting a fursuit at that stage, at that cost, I wouldn't recommend it personally, whether it be on the money front or just the effort that will have been put in by the artist. If someone does it, most artists will not do children fursuits because of this problem. It would be sad to see a suit made and just abandoned because the child's lost interest in it. I'd say probably the best option for you is to actually either, if you are artistic, maybe make the suit yourself a little bit, practice a bit and then make a suit, or help teach your child to make it themselves, or help encourage them to make it themselves. That way they can be really proud of something that they've done themselves with their own hands. Before getting to that sort of age and size, and know that that's what they really love, and that at least they won't outgrow it. So probably by 16, 17, you're probably going to start getting to a size where it shouldn't be too problematic. That being said, even in your early 20s, you sort of fill out a bit more, maybe more so for the boys. It's a little bit tricky in that sort of in-between age. And I think that's going to be your main sort of complication at the time. Obviously, artistic children will probably love this community as well, because of all the videos on YouTube, because of all the art that there is within the community and all the other artists. I think in this case, it can be a great hobby to have. Some people obviously get into it a lot more. Like me, for example, I've become a fursuit maker now. So I mean, it's got a lot of different potentials to it. So I'd say don't panic. Please be aware that there is an adult side to the furry community, like any other community. And that you are able to teach your child to be aware of that. And obviously the online meeting on people online is obviously the biggest risk, I'd say, at that age for younger people. So really teach them how to check their sources, how to check who is who, and obviously no alone meetings with people. As I said, some meetups, I think they do allow 16. So, I mean, yes, it's a bit hard but to control. I mean, obviously, it's always hard to control a teen's comings and goings, and who they're going to see, who they're going to go and meet. That will always be a risk anyway. That has nothing to do with the furry community itself. So please be aware of that. but the actual conventions themselves, the actual community itself, is not adult themed specifically. So please don't panic when your kid comes home saying they were like furries, that they want to be a furry. It just means that they have kept that childlike side of wanting to create a character, create or the design of a character and the personality, and want to dress up. It's just like when you wanted to dress up for Halloween and have fun like that. It's no different. It's just more specific to animals that can talk, walk like humans on their 2 feet. It's mainly a creative interest as well. Whether it's because your child is not particularly artistic and admires the creativity that others can have, or whether they themselves are creative and would maybe like to make this, which is where the making of the costume itself would be very interesting. There are plenty of videos online to show you how to make the costumes themselves. There's so much stuff on the internet for the creative side of furries. It's amazing. And all the art, drawing, painting, digital art, it's all there as well. So obviously, I'm sure if they're creative, they can find something that they love in that as well. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. Do check out my other videos. I will have them featured at the end about what a furry is as well in more detail, and also about a convention, for example. Do check them out at the end after this video. Thank you then, and I'll see you next week. Bye!